There is a county on the coastal plain of North Carolina, bigger than the entire city of Raleigh, and barely 3,000 people live in all of it. No traffic lights, no department stores, no multi-lane highways. The local courthouse looks out over a Blackwater River where alligators cruise past cypress knees, and almost nobody outside the state knows it's even there. Everyone pictures the banking towers of Charlotte or the sprawling tech campuses of Raleigh, but underneath that is another North Carolina, a place of forgotten mountain hollows, isolated maritime forests, and deep swamps where the loudest thing all day is the wind through the pines. We're counting down 12 of them. Subscribe if you are tired of tourism videos where everything is perfect. Here, we show North Carolina the way it actually is. Let's get into it. Number 12, West Jefferson. So we begin with the softest landing on the list. It sits at 3,000 feet on a high mountain plateau in Ashe County, tucked away in the northwest corner of the state. The town itself has just around 1,300 residents. The air up here is crisp, the summers are genuinely cool, and the landscape is dominated by rolling pastureland and the ancient peaks of the New River Valley. It has a small hospital, a real downtown with a historic arts district, and even a famous local cheese factory. Back in the mid-20th century, it was a rugged mountain train stop, but when the railway pulled out, the town quietly reinvented itself as a haven for retirees and craftsmen looking for elbow room without completely abandoning civilization. That is exactly why West Jefferson is only number 12. It is the most civilization you'll find on this entire countdown. The trade-off is that running to a major airport or a Costco means a winding 2-hour mountain drive. But if you want crowd-free without going full hermit, this is your gentle introduction. Everything above it gets quieter. Everything above it gets harder. 11. Love Valley. Most towns try to pave their roads, build parking lots, and court modern development. Love Valley did the exact opposite. Tucked into the brushy mountains, this little outpost made it illegal to drive a car on Main Street. The roads are pure dirt. There are hitching posts outside every storefront, and the local architecture looks like a movie set from 1880. Founded in 1954 by a man named Andy Barker, who wanted to live out his cowboy dreams, the town legislature made the horse-only rule permanent. To this day, only around 150 permanent residents live here, navigating life on horseback or horse-drawn carriage. Here's the honest reason Love Valley ranks near the bottom. It's an intentional novelty. While it gives you genuine frontier quiet on a damp Tuesday morning, it sits less than an hour from the massive Interstate 77 corridor. On rodeo weekends, the trucks, trailers and tourists arrive in droves, shattering the illusion. It's a living, breathing piece of country law close enough to a city to be reachable, but a stark reminder that the frontier lifestyle out here is a deliberate choice. Number 10. Valdese. Valdese was founded in 1893 by a very specific group of immigrants, the Waldensians, a deeply religious, independent Protestant sect from the Cottian Alps of northern Italy. By the time they came to Burke County, their centuries of persecution back home were already history. The Waldensians had won full legal rights decades earlier, in 1848. What actually pushed them across the Atlantic was much simpler. Their small strip of alpine land had become too crowded to support them, and America offered room to grow. They chose this rugged spot in the foothills of the Blue Ridge Mountains because it reminded them of the harsh, rocky terrain of their homeland. They cleared the soil by hand, built sturdy stone buildings, and fiercely resisted outside influence for decades. Today, about 4,500 people live here, The town has retained its incredibly stubborn independent streak, refusing to blend into the surrounding suburban sprawl. It ranks at number 10 because its proximity to Interstate 40 means it's never truly remote from the modern grid. However, its quiet is the rarest kind, defended by cultural heritage, thick stone walls, and a history of people who just wanted room to breathe. Number 9. Saluda. Saluda is defined by a single terrifying piece of geography, the Saluda Grade. It is the steepest mainline railroad track in the entire United States, dropping over 600 feet in less than 3 miles. For over a century, steam engines and diesel locomotives roared up and down this mountain crest, bringing wealth and noise to this tiny Polk County town. But when the trains stopped running in 2001, the silence returned and it never left. Around 700 people live here now, perched at the very edge of the Green River Gorge. The surrounding wilderness is a vertical playground of roaring waterfalls, sheer cliffs, and old-growth hardwood forest. Daily life moves at the speed of the slow-flowing mountain mist. It lands in the middle of our list because while it has a charming, preserved main street that attracts weekend leaf peepers, the sheer geography of the gorge protects it from ever being overrun. You trade smooth, flat terrain for vertical isolation and a town that literally looks down on the rest of the state. Number 8. Celo. Tucked deep inside the Black Mountain Range under the shadow of Mount Mitchell, the highest peak east of the Mississippi, lies Celo. It is not a traditional town with a mayor or a stoplight. It is one of the oldest communal land trusts in America. It was founded in 1937 by Arthur Morgan, a progressive reformer and the former chairman of the Tennessee Valley Authority, who bought over 1,000 acres of mountain valley along the South Toe River to test out his ideas about small, self-governing communities. Quakers weren't part of the founding vision, but they gravitated to Celo in the years that followed, and the community has been shaped by Quaker values of simplicity and consensus ever since. The families who live here don't own their land traditionally. They hold long-term land use agreements, focusing heavily on self-reliance, small-scale farming and artistic hermitage. There are no corporate signs, no neon lights, and zero commercial development. Celo ranks here because it is exceptionally green, deeply private, and serves as a quiet, heavily forested counterweight to the exposed coastal areas higher up on this list. It is a community of people who look at modern society and quietly say, "No thank you." Number 7. Ockracoke Island. Picture this. It's a Tuesday morning in January. The maritime forest is dripping with cold coastal rain, and you stand on a beach where the Atlantic Ocean meets the Pamlico Sound. There are no bridges to this island. The only way in or out is by ferry, anywhere from a quick hour-long hop from Hatteras to a slow, multi-hour haul from the mainland. This is Ockracoke, the infamous final hiding place of the pirate Blackbeard, who met his violent end right off these shores in November 1718. The island is home to a tiny, isolated community of roughly 800 permanent residents. The outer beaches belong entirely to the national seashore, meaning they can never be developed. So why does a place this incredibly isolated rank only at number 7? It's because beauty this legendary cannot remain a secret. In July the ferries are booked solid, the narrow village streets are swarming with golf carts, and the heat is oppressive. The peace here is entirely real, but it is deeply seasonal. Come back in October when the families have gone home, and the Outer Banks belong only to the wind and the island's ponies. You'll realise why people buy property here and keep their mouths shut. Number 6. Hot Springs. The rugged mountains of western North Carolina are not supposed to give you a natural, geothermally heated spa, and yet, nestled deep inside a river canyon, where the French Broad River cuts through the Appalachian chain, that is exactly what you get. Hot Springs sits directly over natural mineral springs that bubble out of the earth at a constant 108 degrees Fahrenheit. The only true hot spring in North Carolina. Native Americans considered this canyon sacred ground for thousands of years before European settlers built historic grand resorts that were eventually burned down by war and time. Today, the town has fewer than 600 residents. The Appalachian Trail runs directly down the main street of town, making it a legendary rest stop for exhausted long-distance hikers. It is a literal oasis, wrapped in absolute wilderness. Everything around it is steep, rocky and punishing, but the water makes it worth it. If you are enjoying this unvarnished look at the map, do the thing the algorithm pretends not to care about and subscribe. We make these videos every single week, and our whole audience consists of people quietly plotting an escape to a town most of their friends couldn't find without a GPS. Number 5, Fontana Village. Now we are transitioning into true hard remoteness. Fontana Village shouldn't exist. It was built out of absolute necessity in the 1940s as a literal pop-up construction town to house thousands of workers building the Fontana Dam, the tallest dam in the eastern United States, rushed into existence during World War II to feed the massive electricity demands of nearby aluminum plants that were building military aircraft. Some of that power would later help energize the secret Manhattan Project research happening at Oak Ridge, Tennessee. But the dam's real, urgent purpose was keeping wartime aluminum production running. When the project ended and the roughly 5,000 workers left, the village stayed, completely surrounded by the Great Smoky Mountains National Park and the absolute wilderness of the Nantahala National Forest. Today, the town's official year-round population is barely more than a dozen people, one of the smallest incorporated towns in the entire state. It features a historic lodge, a few stone cabins, and an interstate-style sense of isolation despite being deep in the woods. Number 4, Swan Quarter. If you have ever wanted to see what the coastal plain looked like before modern agriculture and beach tourism took over, this is it. Swan Quarter is the lonely heart of Hyde County. This is country dominated by vast Pocassin swamps, dark brackish canals. The town itself has around 300 residents and serves as the silent gateway for the ferry to Ockracoke. In 1876, a massive hurricane literally floated the town's newly built Methodist church off its foundations and carried it down the street to the very plot of land the congregation had originally been refused when they tried to buy it, an event locals still call a miracle. Modern highways completely bypassed Swan Quarter, leaving it forgotten by the contemporary map. The silence here is so immense it almost has a physical weight, broken only by the cry of migratory waterfowl over Lake Matamuskeet. Number 3, Robbinsville. Plenty of motorcyclists and sports car drivers know the road that starts near here, the infamous Tail of the Dragon, a stretch of US 129, featuring 318 curves in just 11 miles. But once you turn off that asphalt circus and head into Robbinsville proper, the modern world vanishes completely. Robbinsville is the capital of Graham County, a region where well over 60% of the entire landmass is owned by the federal government as protected national forest. The town houses only about 600 people, cradled by the ancient old-growth giants of the Joyce-Kilmer forest, because the surrounding mountains block out virtually all light pollution from neighbouring regions. The night sky over Robbinsville doesn't just twinkle, it pours light. People travel thousands of miles to photograph a Milky Way that the residents here own simply by stepping onto their front porches. It lands at number 3 because it perfectly balances being incredibly tiny, pitch dark, and completely silent, without being entirely invisible to the map. Number 2, Beech Mountain. If you've been waiting this entire countdown for somewhere that experiences truly brutal, non-southern winters, here it is. Beech Mountain is the highest incorporated town in Eastern America, sitting at an astonishing 5,506 feet above sea level. The summer heat down in the valleys doesn't just break up here, it completely shatters, replaced by mountain winds and temperatures that feel like New England. It's home to a tiny year-round population of a few hundred people who brave extreme winter snowfalls and ice storms that regularly cut the mountain off from the lower elevations. Starting in 1970, developers built a bizarre theme park called the Land of Oz at the very peak of the mountain. It ranks at number 2 because while its peace is absolute, it remains reachable via well-maintained roads for the winter ski crowds. Reachable peace is the one thing our number 1 spot fixes by being so deep in the wilderness that almost nobody ever bothers to come at all. Number 1, Columbia. Here it is, the emptiest place you can legally call home on the North Carolina coastal plain, and one of the most isolated communities on the East Coast. Columbia is the county seat of Tyrrell County, which stands firmly as the least populous county in the entire state of North Carolina. Imagine just over 3,000 people spread across nearly 400 square miles of dark water, alligator-filled cypress swamps, and dense Pocassin wetlands. The town of Columbia itself holds just a few hundred residents. The Tyrrell County Courthouse. There are no major chain stores, no fast food golden arches, and no multi-lane traffic jams. It is a landscape so quiet it feels trapped in an earlier century. When modern development swept down the Atlantic coast, transforming the Outer Banks into a multi-million-dollar vacation paradise, it skipped Tyrrell County entirely, leaving the wide land emptier with each passing decade. Columbia fixes the one flaw of every beautiful, reachable place, the flaw of being easily found. It sits so far out in the coastal margins, the crowds that would ruin its peace simply never show up. The nearest major hospital or commercial shopping centre is the better part of an hour away across open water bridges. And that is exactly how the residents out here like it. These 12 places are real, and every single one of them is empty for a reason. Some by sheer vertical distance, some by stubborn cultural choice, and some by the unforgiving nature of the wetlands. Most people will drive across North Carolina their whole lives and never turn off the highway to find a single one of them. Like this video if even one of these just landed on your maybe one day list, and subscribe because the quietest corners of this state only get more interesting the farther out you go. And we're just getting started.